Hello everyone. I will be talking about empowering your application monitoring using self-hosted Sentry. So, I am Kumar Shivam, working as a senior software engineer here at GeekyAnts. So, let's start the topic. Before jumping directly to the Sentry and why any monitoring tool which we are using, let us know the problems which we are facing. What are the problems which we are facing and why we are going to use any monitoring tool. So first problem which I will say is the lack of real-time error tracking. Suppose we are giving a deployment, we are not sure where our code is breaking, or we are getting some issue. We don't have any real-time data until unless someone will come manually and tell, okay, this is breaking, we are getting a 500 error or whatever it is. So that is the thing. That is one of the example. Another thing which we mainly face is like we don't have proper error context. We know we got a 500 error, but why? We made a API and the name param is required and the front end is not passing the name param. Is it the reason or is it some other reason? There can be multiple reasons. We don't have a proper context for that. Other thing is like scaling challenges. Once our applications are scaling, it's very difficult to monitor each and everything. Suppose I am working in a product and we have multiple microservices. So it's very difficult to maintain everything and monitor logs. Okay, what is happening over there? And the last one is insufficient error resolution. We'll check the logs. Okay, we got something. Oh, it's not there. And it's very difficult to identify and fix the bugs. And it is very time consuming also. So this is the problem which we are facing. Not only me, I think all of the developers, they are facing in their day-to-day life. So what's the solution? The solution is we should introduce a monitoring tool to our system. So Sentry is one of the monitoring tool which we are using. I'm using Sentry from last 3-4 years. Okay, so first let's get to know what Sentry is. So Sentry is a monitoring tools, and Sentry will give you a real-time monitoring of your application. So what real-time monitoring means? Whenever you get an error, you will get a response from Sentry. Okay, this error logged over there. And you can quickly go and check that error and fix that particular error. It can be a production error, a development error, or your pre-production environment, can be any environment. The another thing, which is the best part about Sentry, you will get a detailed error report. When I say detailed, I will show you a demo also how detailed it is. You will get each and every error traces which we have. What and all errors occurred, what users did, everything you will get. Third part is integration. Sentry works with almost all the tech stacks. I personally used it with Python, Laravel, Next.js, Express, Node. I personally worked with this tech stack, and Sentry works completely fine with this tech stacks. And I'm sure like for it works fine with other tech stacks too. Other thing is like the one of the best part, the collaboration tools. It integrates seamlessly with Slack and Jira. Once you get an issue, it will directly send error to your Slack, your channel. Okay, this error happened to your production environment or your pre-production environment. Go and check that error. We can quickly go and check that error. Okay, another thing, so by using Sentry, it will enhance the user experience. Now coming to the Sentry is cost involved. We need to buy the licensing, we need to pay to Sentry to create the project. So there is a open source project from Sentry also only, that is known as self-hosted Sentry. So self-hosted Sentry is an open source project from Sentry which you can host in your infra only, and you will get all the features provided by the Sentry at your own infra. So what are the main benefits of self-hosted Sentry? You will get complete control over the data. Whatever errors, logs you are generating over Sentry, that will be in your infrastructure. And that is a very mandatory thing and very important thing once your application or your product is growing. So you need to keep your data restricted to your infrastructure. So it will help you in that. Other thing is it will follow all the policies. Whatever data we are logging, we can keep the data, we can follow all the policies. It can be a GDPR policy or it can be any other policies. We can introduce all the policies over in self-hosted Sentry. Other thing is flexibility. It's a SaaS solution. It's hosted in our own infrastructure. We have all the permission to go play with it, customize according to our end. That is a best part of it. The main part is cost efficiency. You will tell, I have a Sentry hosted in my own infrastructure and that is way too costly. Yes, it is in starting, but if you'll see a long-term process, it will, you have a fixed cost. You have to give only the infrastructure cost, what you are bearing. Everything is hosted for free. That is the main benefit of Sentry. And when I'm telling free, suppose you have only one app, obviously your self-hosted Sentry will not be that much beneficial. But if you have hundreds of apps, assume that scenarios, your application starts growing and you want to keep all your data to your infrastructure, that time Sentry will help you. The self-hosted Sentry will help you, and you can optimize the performance in quite a well manner. So that's the main benefit of self-hosted Sentry. Okay, so I have listed down some of the points which I think the Sentry.io and self-hosted Sentry, how it is different, and what are the major differences. So if we'll talk about setup and maintenance, obviously in Sentry.io you are going to pay a subscription fee. No need to do anything. They will do everything for you. It's go create your username, create your password, go and play around the things. You have everything. But in self-hosted Sentry, you have to maintain your own servers. You have to check your services are running properly or not. We will come on scaling the infra. So suppose you are increasing your number of projects, the Sentry.io will increase automatically. But your self-hosted hosted Sentry, it requires the infra. And I think it's only 20 GB free space recommended by Sentry, and that is not much. So I think it is not consuming a lot of memory, so it is also fine. Cost. Well, coming to the cost, this is the main factor. Well, come to the cost. There is a subscription bay. You have to buy the subscription of Sentry.io for use, and you pay and use the service. But self-hosted, it's open source. You will get all the features. Even you can customize the features, and you have to pay only for your infrastructure, not anything other than that. Updates. Sentry.io will automatically update, but you need to manually update the self-hosted Sentry. It's a manual updation. You don't want new updates. That's completely fine. I don't want to update to a newer version. I will continue using the older version which I have. That's completely up to you. Customization. Sentry.io will give you a very limited customization, and we have almost all the customizations available in self-hosted Sentry because it's open source and you have the source code. You can play around with it. So it's very beneficial for us. So these are some of the parameters I classified, okay, which one to use, cloud or self-hosted Sentry. So if you'll ask me, it depends on your requirements. I think if you have only one app and you're not thinking it will scale much, Sentry.io is the best solution for you. Go pay their fees and use the services. That's completely fine. But your apps are growing. You want to keep all the data within your infrastructure. You have to go for self-hosted Sentry. Coming to the next slide. Okay. So while setting up the self-hosted Sentry, these are some of the recommendations given by the Sentry official documentation itself. So we need a 4-core CPU, 16 GB of RAM, and 20 GB of free disk storage on your infrastructure. These are the recommended system resources from Sentry. You may increase. I tried with 8 GB, it's working, but I think it's recommended better to use a 16 GB version. And while you are installing the Sentry self-hosted Sentry, you have a basic knowledge of Docker, Kubernetes, and network configuration, and the basic understanding of databases and how web server works. I think that's all is required for hosting a self-hosted Sentry. Okay, how to set up a self-hosted Sentry? Trust me, it's a 15-minute job if you have the infrastructure ready. So we can set up the self-hosted Sentry in just 15 minutes. Just you need a Docker in your system, in your infrastructure up and running. We can set up the entire project using the Docker. Okay, let me tell you, just install the Docker. Once Docker is up and running, clone the repo. We have official sites. You can directly clone the Git repo. Go to that particular directory and they have an install script. This script will do all the magic. It will install all the dependencies, all the requirements, everything will be done by this particular scripts. We'll talk about customization, but this will install everything which is required to run that particular self-hosted Sentry. So that there's only one command: run the script, done. Everything is done. Once our Sentry setup is done, we have run the script. We need to create a user, basically a super user. Sentry called it as a super user. What super user is? Super user is something which is like the main admin. You'll say super admin in a common term, which will have all the accesses. So they have given a command, which is basically a Docker compose command only, to create a user. We can create a user and password, which we are going to use for login, the initial login, and just Docker compose up, and your self-hosted Sentry is up and running. Nothing else. By default, it will be running on 9000 port, and you have everything what Sentry offers, what Sentry.io offers. These are only 4 steps which are required to host a self-hosted Sentry. Coming to the next part. What are the benefits of self-hosted Sentry? First thing, we hosted in our own infrastructure. We have the full data ownership. All the datas, all the logs, all the trace logs, all the error logs is stored in our infrastructure. We are not sharing it with anyone. That is the main thing. Customization. I can customize according to my need. I need a mail server configuration in my Sentry. I can customize this. I need a Slack integration in my Sentry. I can customize it. It's just give your credential, plug and play. That's all. Scale. I don't think if you are using a 16 GB, it can. I am using around 20 projects of now in self-hosted Sentry. It's working completely fine. So it can take more applications also. And the best part about Sentry is the community support. They have a very big community, and I think Sentry introduced all the errors also, and they have a troubleshooting pages which you may face while installing a Sentry. It has everything in their support. So there is a very big community support. Coming to the next part, how self-hosted Sentry will help us in long term. I am building a product. Now my product has around 20 microservice, 20 or 25 microservice, and some 10 front-end website. These are 30 services I have. So it will keep on increasing. The load will keep on increasing. I have a reliability. Okay, this load is coming, and everything will be monitored by my same Sentry, which I am hosting in my infrastructure. I am not going to pay for any extra app or any other thing. I will have improved user experience because I customized my Sentry according to my needs. I'm not going Sentry.io is also customizable, but very limited. You can customize almost everything in self-hosted Sentry, and you have all the data-driven insights. Okay, what happened to a particular code? Suppose one of my API is consuming almost 2 seconds. I can trace each and everything. Okay, why it's taking 3 seconds? Whether the DB call is taking a time or returning the response is taking a time. It will monitor each and everything for you. Okay, so while installing Sentry, the main 2-3 issues I face after the install script, the Sentry was not working. I am unable to log in. So I am getting some CSFR issue and some Kafka issue. So I told you about the community support. So the Sentry has the troubleshooting. Everything is over there. They know you may get these issues. So if you see my screen, this is the official website from Sentry. So the first issue which I got was the CSRF validation failed. This was the issue which I was getting. So we have a config file available. Just we need to add the trusted origins. Like this will be my trusted origin, or this particular IP I'm going to use. You just need to add this. And Sentry suggests to rerun the install.sh script. But for me, restarting the Docker works, and the issues are almost sorted. Kafka issue, it has almost everything which I guess is required from any one of us to set up a Sentry. Coming back to the slides. Okay, so coming to the configuration. I hope my terminal is visible. right? Okay. So I have my Sentry over here. So I will see. Okay, I have self-hosted this one. I cloned from the Sentry official website. Will go inside this. I will do so these are all the files provided by Sentry. Basically you have the whole source code with you. So if we'll go inside Sentry folder, so in this all the documents are there. Basically we have two particular config files which Sentry provides. One is the sentryconf.py and one is config.yaml file, this file. So I told you about the error which I am getting. So you can whitelist all your things over here. So it has almost all the settings, and the best part is they are writing the documentation also, what this feature is used for, why this is used for. You can just go edit your things and just restart your container. Everything will boot up for you. So this is Sentry. And there is a config.yaml file. I have my personal credentials, so I won't be sharing this file, but I will give you a screenshot of the particular file. So you can set up your mail configuration, you can set up your Slack configuration, you can set up your Git configuration in this file, and everything will be up and running in your server. You just need to restart the Docker. If I'll see, so these are the containers which are running Sentry. You can see, you can go, you can check the logs, you can play with the containers if you want. So these are the basic setup for the Sentry. Okay, now, so I told you about email setup. So if you'll go in the config.yaml file, you will have all the host, port, username and password. You just go edit your port, whatever username password you are using. And the another best thing is Sentry gives you a testing URL. You can go and play with your host and port. Example, I will go to this particular URL, just get my password, just a minute. Okay, so I have everything, what I'm using, what's my username, password. Send a test email. Okay, let's see whether I got an email from Sentry or not. Maybe my internet issue. Yeah, I got a test email from Sentry. So my email services are working. So I can set up the email notification whenever I'm getting an issue. I will just go, I will check whether my email is working or not. I will get an email for every issue which I'll get. This is the email configuration. The another thing which we are using widely is the Slack configuration. Just you have to add your client ID, client secret, and same for the Slack. You have the configuration over here. You just need to add your workspace from the UI, play with it. You will set, I will show you how to set up those notifications. Okay, jumping to the demo. So this is my self-hosted Sentry. I am running it on my own infra. So the first screen, it will give me all the issues which currently I am having. For projects, you will go to projects. I have all the projects. I have get a basic detail. Just go to create project. It's suppose a wide range of project in the self-hosted Sentry also. You just select your whatever technology you are using, create a project. You will get a DSNA. You will get all the steps to install that particular code in your particular application, and Sentry will start sending the application. And the best thing is it has a very good dashboard, and the dashboard is something like this, and it will give you a detailed report of everything. It will give you a API count also. This API, someone from last 24 hours, this API has been called 101 times. If you'll go in this API, you can see the performance also. What's the performance? What's the events? How many APIs we are calling? Everything. If you'll go inside this API, you will get all the basic details, how much time it's consuming, everything, all the queries you will get from here. Example, I will go to some other APIs. This API. the best part is this API is consuming almost 201 milliseconds. This is not much. Okay, let's go inside this. I can see how much time everything is taking. Middleware, it's going to middleware, everything, how much time it's taking. I have everything. What are the steps I am running? I have some data, which is my production data also. But the best part of self-hosted Sentry, all the data are available on my infrastructure. It is not shared with Sentry.io. So we have everything. So using Sentry helped us in many things. We are now able to monitor each and everything, all our APIs, all our front ends. Now it's not the thing like after Friday night deployment, we need to see what is going to happen. We know Sentry is there, or any monitoring tool is there to back us with this and help us with this, and we can quickly resolve those errors. So this is the demo. I think if you have any question, you can ask. And that's all from my end.